Hello and welcome to the 20th episode of the DIMP Digital Podcast. On this session, you've got Mr. Hall, Mr. Logan.
Hello.
And well,
that is not how we ever do it.
That is not how we ever do it, but we'll roll with it anyway.
Forgotten, haven't I?
Yeah.
Got confused.
After a week off, it's really got the better of you, hasn't it? You've absolutely blown that, but we'll
myself.
We'll carry on, and maybe Pepper will be reinstalled. That is basic stuff.
Is.
Anyway, for those guys at home, it's Mr. Logan, Mr. Hall, and myself, Apps. Mr. Hall seems like he's all right. Logan, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad, mate.
Excellent. Let's get straight in. There he is again, piping up.
Yoo-hoo.
Let's get straight into it now, because I don't know what you two are on about, what you've been doing before you've come on here, but you're clearly some sort of yoo-hoo bollocks is going on. Got some sort of light news to just sort of set us off, get us off a nice sort of easy start. Batman Arkham Asylum has been delayed until the 23rd of June, so that's a 3-week pushback. Nothing drastic, so I'm not overly bothered. I'm not overly bothered about the game myself yet. I've yet to see anything that's really grabbing at me. It drops after E3 now, so I imagine it's purely a marketing thing. Do you know what I mean? Stir up some last-minute hype at E3 and then try and drill the sales, a week or so later. But it looks like a marketing thing. I can't see there's anything in the development, because you'd expect it to be a few months if there was a real problem with the game. So 23rd of June for Arkham Knight. Battlefield Hardline and Bloodborne are both out. Battlefield is getting actually an okay reception. It's getting a half-decent one, sort of a few 7s and 8s being chucked about. Logan, you pretty much dismissed it last time when you played the beta, or beta rather. Have you been tempted to perhaps look at this again, or is your mind completely made up on this?
I'm not overly fussed about it. I mean, my status on multiplayer games at the minute anyway is that I'm just binning them for the time being.
Out of commission.
Yeah, they're out of commission, but I haven't really got any burning desire to play the single player. I still haven't done Battlefield 4 single player, so I've seen it's getting good reviews. I mean, it played well. The thing is, it is ultimately Battlefield 4, so it's always going to be good. Everyone's forgotten that and just gone, awesome game. This is completely original. I don't know. I mean, I've seen it's got good reviews. It probably is a good game, but it's probably just not for me.
No, Hall, I imagine. I mean, you mentioned last time you wasn't the biggest fan of it. I mean, I imagine this is not going to change your mind at all. That it's not getting slated. It seems like they've managed to at least launch the game without too many problems.
Yeah, I think I've read a few reviews on it, and one of the things that kind of resonated the most with me, which I think is a really good point, is that if they'd have released it just as, Hardline, just a game called Hardline, it wasn't part of the Battlefield series, I think it probably would have done a lot better. But the thing was, they did it as a Battlefield, and everyone kind of went, well, this isn't Battlefield. We like the big kind of massive conquest maps where people fight one another. So they included that, and that put people like Logan off, where he went, well, it's just the same as Battlefield. I think if they'd have maybe done it separately from the franchise, then maybe that would have slightly impacted people's view on it, because they wouldn't have had to do the big game types or anything like that. As it is, like Logan said, it looks as though it's very similar to the last Battlefield, and really it's more of an expansion rather than a whole new.
That's the problem, though. They can't release it as a separate game away from the Battlefield game, because it is effectively Battlefield. They've basically just taken that engine, gone, cheers, skinned it a little bit.
They've put in like the large conquest games, but there is other game types which are you have to go and steal vehicles and hold on to them and bits and pieces. Yeah, which could be, like I say, it could have been quite a good little standalone title, I think, with perhaps slightly more limited things. I mean, I don't know anything about if there's a single player or what the single player involves, but one would presume that could be quite good. I don't even know if there is a single player, but like I say, I just think it was a bit of an odd one to release it as part of the Battlefield franchise, but then I suppose it's all done for marketing to bring in the hardcore Battlefield fans. Yeah,
I mean, it's got Battlefield's a sort of a well-established, series now, so I imagine it was just trying to cash in on that, and it is using a lot of the same engine essentially, and it has been just reskinned with new assets and things added. So, I think you're right. If they were feeling a bit risky, they could have gone with just Hardline and disassociated themselves with Battlefield. But I imagine that EA wanted to keep it tight knit, try and give people a familiar feel to it. But it doesn't quite work, in my opinion. The whole big maps with cops and robbers. But I'm not going to be getting it, I don't think. I'm not really. Multiplayer is not really my most favourite thing in the storyline, although it sounds like it's decent. decent's not enough to spend 50 quid on a new game for. So if it drops down in terrific price,
reduced one perhaps,
yeah, sort of bargain bin maybe in a few years. I'll find those hanging around. But Bloodborne, on the other hand, that is getting a terrific reception. Yeah. I've just bought Dragon Age Inquisition finally, so I'll be on that for a little while, probably quite a while, because it's a massive, great big game. But it is my birthday next month, and this is going to the top of the list. So at some point during April, I will be cashing in and playing Bloodborne, and it finally looks like PS4 owners have got a top-notch exclusive. I'm not sure if it'll sell as well as what the critics are giving it, because I think it's a very challenging game. All the Souls games are very, very challenging. I've never played any of them, but from what I've read, from what I've seen, they're incredibly hard. And people don't like hard these days. People do not like difficult games.
No.
I think that'll put a lot of people off, and it'll probably be maybe cashed in by a few people. But it seems like a bit of a niche game. But I don't care for that. I don't care for the shit about how much it sells. It seems like it's a good game. I'm going to get it, and I will definitely be reporting back on my findings once my birthday rolls around and I've had a chance to play it.
Good stuff.
Yes, Evolution Studios. Now, we've mentioned them first once or twice on the podcast before. They're the Drive Club developers, and we gave them a bit of shit for the botched launch. It was a massive mess. We don't know whether it was Sony's fault for pushing it or whether it was Evolution Studios' fault for not having it ready, and we're never going to get to the bottom of that. But they are facing heavy layoffs. Up to 55 jobs have been reported to be made redundant, so that's about half, just over half of their team. And Sony have released a statement saying they don't want to build a new sequel for Drive Club. They want to just keep it running as a service and add content through a DLC type model. It's bad news. I don't like anyone to hear about them losing the jobs, but it's quite an interesting direction they're going with this. If they actually stick to this, if they're not going to cash in and release a yearly sequel, or even a bi-yearly sequel, they're literally going to update it with packs for perhaps the next 2-3 years. Is that a model that either of you would be interested in for any other games?
Yep.
Yeah. What game particularly, Logan, would you like? Would that work with well? Do you think? Because with Drive Club, they can add tracks, cars, all it's things they can do that are quite quick wins. But what would you like to see in particular? Do you think that's a good model? I mean, obviously it would save you having to buy perhaps a new FIFA each year. Not trying to sway you, or maybe a new Football Manager.
Well, I think obviously the only thing that really changed, they tweak FIFA. I think it has got better. They do make minor changes every year. But I think it could work for something like sport games, so your rugby, FIFAs and those sort of things. They obviously nothing moves on that far every year, apart from if it's Pro Evolution Soccer. They go, new engine, we've built it from scratch, which they say every year. But
wow, do they?
I think it could work with that. I think it could work with almost any game. Obviously not with single player, but mainly I'm thinking sort of multiplayer games. So definitely Call of Duties could do with just additions made. They don't really make massive strides on that every year. I think it could be said for most games, really. I mean, look at GTA, for example. They keep doing little bits and bobs to that, keep that going, and everyone's still loving it and playing it. They've remastered it. I like the idea that they've kept it going with first person and things like that. They add new cars, animals, and just keep it going, really. And I think it works better because they've got an arm then that can work on a sequel. Like, I've been reading a few bits about GTA 6. They've got a big team working on that. They've obviously then got a big team sort of keeping their current game playable rather than just working flat out to try and get a yearly or bi-yearly sequel every time with very few changes and charging everyone top whack.
Yeah, the trouble is though, everyone buys these yearly sort of instalments, don't they? That's the trouble.
I think everyone just expects there to be something different though. And when I buy a new Call of Duty, I expect them to be, because they're charging me that money, I think they're going to be giving me my money's worth one way or the other. Do you know what I mean? You don't expect to be sort of shafted by them.
Well,
I don't know why. And even when I buy the FIFAs, I think, right, well, I expect there to be something here that makes me go, it's even better.
Transfers. Updated, done. Kits updated for you. There you go.
I like the
quid.
I do like that. They've made subtle changes, but I don't think it's anything that they couldn't have done via.
You could patch all them gameplay tweaks in though, because we've seen it with tweaks happen in games that are released after a month. They tweak things in the game. Yeah, EA Sports UFC have done a terrific job of doing that, adding new gameplay mechanics as the game's gone on to expand it. Perhaps they should have been there from day one, but they wasn't. But they can do this if they wanted to go down this model, but there's too much money at stake to.
I think that's all it is now.
Yeah.
What is there to be gained by them doing that?
Just we all clap them and applaud them.
Yeah,
and they go, Deep Digital like us. That's
yeah, and then but they're millions of pounds down. So, as you say, people always buy it. The only way to change it maybe is by voting with your wallet.
Well, that is the only way.
But the thing is, just really quickly on that. I mean, you were saying, like, don't get me wrong. You have to say, hats off to Rockstar with GTA. They've kind of set the trend for it, and that they've added a lot on. But there is microtransactions within GTA.
Yeah,
so you can buy in-game dollars to buy cars and bits and pieces. So that's how they kind of make their money back. You look at Destiny, which has said, we're going to release DLC for X amount. I mean, don't get me wrong. You don't have to buy the in-game dollars on GTA, but
no.
I'm not a huge fan of the idea of just updating a game. I'd rather they just, like we said, just do it properly to start with and release a finished game. And if you want to do some DLC for it, then do that rather than kind of
or just charge everyone for regurgitated material like Destiny do.
Wow. That's a bit
you see what I mean? I have the worry that if they're doing that, it's either going to be little things that should have been there in the first place. I mean, the only game that I can really think of that's done it really well, like I say, in fairness, is GTA. They always seem to keep, I don't know how Rockstar managed to do it and keep adding all these extra bits in for gameplay without charging anyone for it.
Well, they made an absolute mint from selling it.
Yeah, of course. But I mean, they wouldn't have had to. They'd already made that money. They don't have to then go out of their way to add anything else. They could have just gone, fuck you.
I think it's because they wanted to. Like, I think they had all these ideas that they wanted to do for when they released the game, but they weren't ready. And instead of charging everyone for a shitload of DLC, they just gave it to them free because that's what they wanted to do. Whereas, for Destiny, for example, they had all this stuff they wanted to do, but they didn't put it in the main story. They chopped it all out and then sold it as DLC. So you got two complete different models there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. If more people followed the approach of Rockstar, I think you'd have a much happier gaming community, but
we're all miserable bastards. So
but we sit here and say that. I've bought the
expansion
pass for Destiny. Hall's bought his. He's playing it loads. And so, what can you say? Both work, and who's actually the mug? Because at the end of the day, we're the ones that bought the DLC. So,
yeah.
No complaints there. One bit of news that's sort of gone under the radar a little bit is Star Wars Battlefront is going to be current gen only, so it won't be released on the 360 PS3 well, it's definitely not coming on the Wii or the Wii U.
Excited about that game.
Yeah, and that's made by DICE, so developers from the Battlefield series will be trying the hand at the Battlefront series or franchise. And I must say, them having it, current gen only, I love this shit. Get more current gen exclusives out there. Make me feel like I've invested my bloody money for a reason. And the only way to do that is to start releasing games for our consoles specifically.
Only. Why the fuck is stuff being made for previous fucking gen? That just means.
Sorry, I just want to stand up here because we always say about good things for the gaming community.
Hang on. Bullshit.
Let Hall go first, and then because I don't know what you're going to say.
I have bought a new console. The reason that I bought the new console is because it is considerably more powerful than my old console. It can run bigger games. They can fit more on the discs, so I can do more with this console. Now, if they're releasing a game that is for both this generation and last generation, most of the new capabilities of my Xbox One are completely fucking wasted. Why should I be buying an old gen console for my new gen? An old gen game for my new gen console. Horse shit. Fucks me off. Get more current gen exclusives.
Boom. I'm in that camp as well. I think that early on I can understand it because you've obviously got a crossover of.
You've got the overlay.
Yeah.
It's been a year and a bit.
Yeah. Pack it in now.
Yeah,
sick of it.
Enough.
Because what I don't like the idea of is that a game is held back, not technically, because graphically they all look fantastic. You can tell. You put on the old gen, you put on the new gen, it looks great. But what I don't like is the fact that we get these new consoles, they've got a lot more horsepower in them. We're expecting new gameplay mechanics, we're expecting more advanced AI. And I feel that having them even released on the lower ones is sort of saying, well, what we've got here we could have done on our old gen anyway. All we've done is given it a new skin. Do you know what I mean? I want to see new innovative features coming out and coming through onto it. And I think that having a dual team working on both sides of it sort of takes away the focus on what should be what we can do in the future, what we can do new. Fair enough, if you've got a separate team dedicated just to porting it down, I'm fine with that. But if you're taking resource out of your main game to put it on an old gen, then I'm not, that is not what I expect to see from a new gen game. I want it to be exclusive. I want it to give me some sort of indication for actually buying these things, and I want to see new technology and new mechanics being introduced. Logan, you were about to harp off. I imagine you were going to go on the other side, was my assumption. Do you want to just have your...
No, I am of the opinion that I obviously have invested. I want them to start showing me why. But on the flip side, I can see, right, how long does it take to start deving a game?
Depends what game it is.
Right, okay. It must be sort of 2 or 3 years. You would have thought it has to be nowadays around that sort of time, unless you've obviously got an engine.
A new title. It's not a sequel or anything.
Yeah. So
you're not reusing assets.
Yeah. So say they started that say that was they were thinking about that 3 or 4 years ago.
Probably using Battlefield assets or engines.
Well, I'm just saying. So they're looking at that. They're going, right, okay. So what are we going to do? What have we got to go off? So I actually get the feeling that a lot of the games we're playing at the minute are based or were designed for the old gen, but have been ramped up a bit now they know what they've got. I don't get the feeling they're doing the opposite. I don't think they're designing them for new gen and ramping them down. I think they've designed them based on what we've got at the moment, because they could have got these consoles and they'd gone, nah, we're actually going to put them back 6 months, or do you know what I mean? They didn't know what the problem was going to be. They didn't know they might know what the spec is. They get developer packs and stuff, but I just think that they've developed them based on the old consoles. I don't think we'll start properly seeing proper next gen console games for another 2 years or a year or two. I really
all
don't.
Over by then, mate.
Well, imagine they've got
be winding down.
I don't know.
I know what you're saying. Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
I think you're right in that they obviously tailor it to what they've got to work with for a period. But as we said, I mean, it's been 18 months now since the current gen consoles came out. Even if the thing is, as you mentioned there yourself as well, they get developer packs. They probably get prototypes for stuff that's built well in advance. Like they know, they have a good idea of what they're dealing with. And I mean, how many games that have come out on this generation of console haven't been sequels or based on a previous game engine? Everything's pretty much, but it's not like we've seen anything horrendously new and innovative. I mean, Titanfall came out, but that came out on last gen as well. You know, there's not been many games that I've looked at and I've thought, that's obviously...
I've just got a feeling that there's a reason why all these developers have played it cautious with next gen stuff. I don't think that I get the feeling that they, for example, Microsoft came out and said, we're releasing it sort of March. When was it? 2013? Is it the back end of 2013 it come out?
What's this, Titanfall?
No, sorry, the new next gen consoles.
November, was it?
They come out at the back end,
2013. 2013.
Yeah. They went, they were going to do that. I've got a feeling that the developers might have been wary about when it was going to get released, or that it could have been put back for some reason. I don't know. I just get that feeling that there's been a sort of sense of trepidation about it. And I think that's why you've seen a lot of remakes and stuff, is because they're trying to... They didn't have anything. They didn't want to develop, by the looks of it, based on these new next-gen consoles. So, as I say, I think they've gone, right, we'll do it for the 360, for example, but we can ramp it up for the Xbox One. And don't forget that these companies have also got to appeal to as many people as possible. So, like us hardcore, I say hardcore, but us ones that are actually... wanted the new ones, we've gone out and got it, but there's probably a whole heap of people that don't actually want it yet, but still want to be able to play the game.
But with that, I'd say that the people who are still on old generation consoles probably don't go out and spend a lot of money on a new game anyway. Like, I don't see, like, a couple of my friends are still running on Xbox 360s or PS3s.
Defriend them, delist them, get rid of them.
And it's like, if the game comes out, they don't buy it. They don't buy their new games. They just play the old stuff they've got every now and again. Like, I cannot fathom at the minute why companies are still creating for old generation.
All these children that can't go out like me, you, and just buy it. What about they need to wait for birthday?
Well, they don't need to be playing Battlefield Hardline, do they? It's an 18 game. They shouldn't be playing it.
They're all playing it.
Well,
all these companies know they're all playing it. So you just
Henry Kramer all over again.
Fucking Henry Kramer, yeah.
Well,
But I think it's good as well that if they can release it on a earlier console, then do it. Give as many people a chance to play the good games as possible.
No, force them to buy the new console. Fuck them.
Done. I agree. Now, I must say that I think it's slowly turning now. Like Bloodborne, that's current gen only. That will not appear on the PlayStation 3. It won't appear on the Xbox One either. And Batman Arkham Knight will also be current gen only as well. So I think it's slowly turning.
It is slowly.
And I expect it for the first year or so. And to be honest, it is slowly dying out. I'm just glad that games like Star Wars Battlefront, for example, are saying, drawing a line, saying, right, that's it, done with it. You get a new console, you're not paying Battlefront.
I know we've harped on about this a lot, but just one more thing on it. I think another reason for it, in the company's defence, is that the jump between the 360 and the Xbox One, for example, has been a lot smaller than it has been in every previous console jump.
Yeah, of course. There's no HDs. HD's already there, so you don't notice the graphics. You don't know. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, you look at like the Xbox original to the Xbox 360, or even the PS2 to the PS3, and it was a massive step up. Yeah. So it was like.
Sure.
Developers did have so much more to play with, but now it's less of a jump. So maybe that's part of the reasoning behind it as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point there. Let's move on to the fallout between Hideo Kojima and Konami. So I don't expect you pair to have much of an opinion on this, but I know there's massive Metal Gear Solid fans out there, and they'll want this addressed. Here's what we know. Hideo Kojima and his team will be working on Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain, all the way until its completion, so that's a good thing. There's a PR statement that's released by Konami confirming this. They also released in that statement that they will be working on a new Metal Gear. They called it Metal Gear, they didn't say Metal Gear Solid. I'm not sure whether that's Metal Gear Rising or anything like that, but they said there's going to be one after 5, which is to be expected. But it's widely believed that Kojima and his team, which is called Kojima Productions, will be disbanded at the tail end of this year. They will no longer be a subsidiary of Konami, meaning the main man himself, the master of Metal Gear Solid, and his team will essentially be free agents. Now, there's some good things that I think are going to come out of this. I mean, Kojima and his team are obviously very talented. I love their games, and they're going to have complete freedom now. Now, they could potentially go indie. I'm sure they've got quite a lot of money that Kojima's made. They could do a Kickstarter, and I've got no qualms about people going for that. I think a lot of people would happily kickstart Kojima and his team to make a new IP, and that'll give them ultimate free reign. But I'll tell you what might happen. You might see Microsoft and Sony sniffing around to try and onboard
cheeky little bids.
Try and get them as a second party developer or first party developer and get them on board exclusively, because that would be a massive coup if they can land this mob, as part of their team.
It'd be absolutely huge.
Yeah, and I think whatever happens, I reckon Kojima will want to be left alone and not be interfered with. So I don't think it's necessarily going to come down to financial offers. It will come down to who's going to give me the most,
free reign
freedom, because he's got a creative mind. He likes to direct things with his vision, and that's why a lot of his games have been critically acclaimed, because they're his vision, and he's very good at what he does. Now, I've obviously got concerns about this. Does this disrupt Metal Gear Solid 5? It's not released yet. I hope not. It's pretty far.
You'd think it'd have a slight impact on it, wouldn't it? For sure.
Yeah, it's very far down the line. So it comes out September 1st, so we're at the tail end of development. But the disruption is going to be minimal. But all I will say is it kind of helped, could it?
No. I mean, the one sort of occasion that I would kind of compare it to, I don't know whether you guys remembered when Nintendo used to have a company called Rareware that used to operate for them. They made the Banjo-Kazooie games, they made the Conker games, Donkey Kong, 64. There's a lot of games that Rareware produced, and they had a big falling out with Nintendo.
Right.
And disbanded, and then they were snapped up by Microsoft as an exclusive, so they started producing games for Microsoft.
Yeah.
So Microsoft kind of rehashed and re-released some of the old Nintendo games, and it was just, they were a sack of shit. And since then, I think what happened primarily was a lot of the big sort of names within Rareware went back to work for Microsoft for Nintendo directly, and Rare were kind of left as a bit of a nothing company that didn't really. I mean, they didn't really produce too much for Microsoft of note. So the only concern that I would have is that, I mean, obviously they sound like a bit more of a tight-knit team if they've got one guy who's kind of running the show behind things. You'd hope they'd keep the team together, but
if you need a job, don't you? And being a free agent's not really the time to be having. It's
not the position to be in. So you'd hope that they stay together and that they continue to make the franchise of game, be it for, like you said, be it for Microsoft or Sony or whomever.
Well, but, I think what's going to happen is Konami's going to have the rights for the Metal Gear Solid franchise, so Kojima Productions, they'll go off on their own and make their own versions of it. I mean, does that signal? Maybe that'll signal the end to top quality MGS games. I don't know. I'd compare it to how Bungie have moved off of Halo and 343 Industries came in to do Halo 4. Okay, they did an okay job with Halo 4, but it certainly wasn't on par with 1 to 3, was it?
No.
And they came in
absolutely right.
And I think that's what will happen with the new Metal Gear Solid games. The only thing I'm concerned about what's happened here is what have they fallen out about? What did Kojima, was he not ready to release the game? Is it now going to come out unpolished because Konami want it out early? Did they want microtransactions? There's all these paranoid thoughts that are going through my mind that might be affecting Metal Gear Solid 5. But my biggest concern is to do with Silent Hills. Is that now bin? Because after playing the terrifying PT demo, I was really looking forward to what Kojima and Guillermo del Toro had in store. But I think that's now completely in jeopardy because that was being
binned. Yeah,
that was in conjunction with Konami and Kojima was again directing it, and it's Kojima. I just think that might be binned now, and that would be a real shame because that was one of the most powerful, albeit a demo, things I've played in a long, long time.
Difficult, isn't it?
Yeah, we won't know to the end of the year. The good thing is they've come out and said they'll be working on MGS5 till it's done, till it's
at least
completed.
They're finishing it off. Yeah,
which is good. The rumour is that all of the Kojima Productions staff have been taken off the permanent roster at Konami and are now contractors, which makes sense if you're gonna get rid of them at the end of the year. It's a strange situation, but we will have to see whether it ends up being positive in the long run, but it'll be a sad day to see that Kojima will not be involved in any more Metal Gear Solid games after this, so this one better be fucking good, I'll tell you that much. Nintendo, we've got a couple of things on Nintendo. You don't always get the most press when we're on here, but they've actually caused a bit of a stir, haven't they? Nintendo NX, code name for a new gaming platform is what they've announced. There's been very little details on this. I like the code name, NX, but that will not be the final release of the game. Can almost bet your bollocks of that.
Project Dolphin.
What was that, the Wii?
That was the GameCube.
Right. To be fair, the GameCube's better in it than that.
Oh, yeah.
They've done okay there. But, I mean, Mr. Hall, you've got the Wii U.
Yep.
You've had it since launch, so what's that, 2-3 years now?
I haven't had
Oh, no, you did you? You went out and got a loaf of bread, didn't you?
Yeah.
That was it. But now, are you worried that they could just drop this next year? I mean, it's not. I wouldn't expect them to. But would you be bothered if they did? I guess is a better question.
I think the key is in the wording. I know we're coming on to it after this, but they're looking to potentially branch into mobile gaming. And as you said, they've announced it as a new gaming platform, and I wonder whether that's going to be their way of saying we are going to be releasing these devices for iOS and Android, and NX is going to be like the kind of modelling technique they use for online gaming. If it is a new console, I don't think it's going to be seen for 3 years.
Okay, I would like that. I would prefer. I don't want anything coming out next year because I think it undermines the Wii U, which is starting to gain some traction now.
It's a reasonable price. It's become more viable for most people. So
it's got some good games that are out and whatnot. Nintendo president Satoru Iwata said, "If you only expand upon existing hardware, it's dull. In some shape or form, we're always thinking about how we want to surprise players, as well as our desire to change each person's video gaming life." What does that say to you, Logan? Does that interest you?
Possibly VR, isn't it? You got to take that as a possibility.
That is a good point. I never really even thought.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
Well, to me, they made sort of inroads into what is now really mainstream Kinect and all the stuff on the Wii, motion controls. They sort of went into that. They've obviously decided that they can't compete with everyone else on sort of just mainstream gaming, if you like. They have to
I don't think they want to, do they?
They don't.
Honestly, I don't think they want to, which is a good thing, because the last thing we need is another machine
big name console,
that plays all the third-party games that we've got, plus one or two exclusive. We need something different out there to challenge our ideas of what video gaming can be.
So it'll either be VR. I mean, it's interesting that they've announced it alongside mobile gaming, because no other big players really gone for that. Sony and Microsoft sort of haven't really. They're just concentrating on their.
Not much,
they're just doing their console stuff. They've made no. I mean, bear in mind that Microsoft have got their own operating system for the phones, and they could do it relatively easily, but they're just not really interested in it. So that's quite interesting that they're going to specifically design for mobile games. That'd be quite cool.
Yeah,
be interested to see what they can produce.
Yeah, I just really want to see them to get a decent powered machine out there, launch it at a reasonable price, and churn out some more games on it, some more exclusive, some more Nintendo created stuff.
New stuff.
Yeah, I don't want to. Yeah, new stuff, some new IPs. I don't want to be seeing it in 2016. I do not want to see this being released on that date time. End of 2017, I think, is more realistic, and I think that's probably where where it's going to actually land. But if we see it in 2016, I would see that as a bit of a low blow to some Wii U owners.
I can't really see it being any sooner, because when you look at the Wii U with regards to kind of big releases that have come out for that, we've had Mario Kart, Super Smash Brothers,
Bayonetta.
Yeah, I suppose Bayonetta 2, and then potentially we're going to get Zelda mid next year sometime.
You got Watch Dogs ported.
Yeah, but that's not an exclusive, is what I mean.
No, sorry.
And they're not, like, in terms of big name games, which has kind of been Nintendo's thing when they bring out their big platformers like the Marios and the Zeldas and the Star Foxes. We've not had many for the Wii U. So I think they're surely Nintendo is still investing money in the Wii U and investing time into producing those big name games that are going to come out and blow everyone away. And hopefully that they're not looking at the Wii U as just a stepping stone onto something better that they'll bring out before long. Because like you say, it will just be a shit on for everyone that's gone out and spent the X amount of money on the Wii U.
Yeah, that's the worry, isn't it? That they actually then hold back something like a Star Fox or the new Zelda game and go, yeah, that's coming in 2016 with our new console. And then that would be the worst case.
Bring it out on all gens.
Yeah, yes, exactly. You'll be going down that route. Where's the Wii U version? All these current gen bastards. That's the worst case now. I do not think they're that.
No,
I say this. I say they don't think they're that stupid, but they've done some ridiculous things in their time. So
they're capable of anything dumb at the minute. They really are.
But then I wonder whether they've announced the NX to draw people's attention away from the fact that they've said you can't play our games and put it on YouTube. I wonder whether it's all tied into that to just distraction.
I think it was actually more tied into our next topic, which is the mobile gaming thing. I think they knew that by going into this mobile venture, it was going to stir a lot of people the wrong. I mean, I've seen people going, "It's the end of video gaming as we know it." Yeah. We're not going to. I'm thinking, well, I don't know about that, but it's certainly rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. I mean, let's go into the mobile thing. Let's bench the NX thing. We don't know enough about it. We're speculating, but they're going to start producing some mobile games with a tech company called DNA. I've heard people call it Dina, but I'm pretty sure it's pronounced DNA. It's going to be new games only, so there's not going to be any ports from any old classics. And they said it's going to be based on their current brands and franchises. Now, I mean, mobile is something that I've dipped my toes in previously when the smartphones first started hitting. Now I've got very little or no interest in it, but that's not to say there isn't a big market there, because get this for a stat, Mr. Jump has been released on iOS, and at the time of this recording it's been out 4 days and it's done 5 million downloads. That is insane. Sickening. And obviously I don't think you pay for that, but it's advertising, isn't it? There's a lot of adverts and whatnot pop up to it, so you can see exactly where the market is there. That is a sickening amount of sales to do in that short a time, and they must be laughing all the way to the bank. Same with Flappy Birds, all that bollocks. They were absolutely cackling with these sort of things. So it's a real cash cow. Logan, would you be interested in playing a version of Mario on your smartphone, albeit that you've got a rubbish iPhone?
Well, I like my mobile games. I play a few, as you know. A few regulars. I've got Clash of Clans, Boom Beach. I like the Family Guy one, Simpsons Tapped Out. I've played all that. I've had all Flappy Bird and all that shit. Don't really interest me. They just stress me out. So I do like a good mobile game. And I was actually thinking the other day, there's not a lot really going on mobile at the minute. There's not a lot. There doesn't seem to be anything new. It's I'll always sort of a couple of times.
What can you do though?
Well,
you really tap. That's the trouble. You're restricted by the technology there.
Yeah, I find my problem with mobile games is I have a few on here, but the thing with them is they've got to be relatively. The ones that I find are the best ones are the ones that are the most simple. So you look at something like Flappy Bird, which obviously did incredibly well, but all it was doing was tapping on the screen. Now I've got an iPad with Call of Duty Zombies on it, but the controls on it are so fiddly because you've not got a control stick, you've got a flat screen, and if your thumb starts to get a bit sweaty, it starts to cause problems as you're steering in bits and pieces. Sure. So games that are from say Nintendo, I can't see how a Mario game would work unless it was just a side scroller and it's just a case of you tap the screen to jump. I find that the best games like the Temple Runs, all of those, it's just a case of either you swipe left, you swipe right, you swipe up, you swipe down, you tap. That's pretty much it. And I think that you're limited by the hardware that you have. I mean, you can't do sort of loads more because the screens aren't big enough. And like I say, the controls just a bit too fiddly to have a D-pad on screen.
Yeah. I remember I played one of the Grand Theft Autos on my old iPhone. It was on trial for free for a few days, and I love the game. But it's impossible.
Yeah,
you can't be playing it on that.
It only works for certain types of games. I mean, as you say, you've got side scrollers and stuff, but I think it works fantastically for strategy games. Yeah. Okay. So I mean, I think you already said that they're not looking to really do ports. They're looking to do versions of their new games of their existing franchises. So
maybe we'll see Mario as a Command and Conquer style game,
I don't really
or a card game.
They've obviously saw there is a niche there that hasn't necessarily been tapped into by a current console producer. So it'd be interesting to see. They've obviously got something that they want to do. They obviously know where they want to go with it. They haven't just announced it going fancy doing something on it, so see what happens. They've obviously identified what they can do on it, and I think phones are just getting bigger. There's such a huge market now. Everyone's pretty much got a smartphone that can be tapped into. Yeah, everyone's got plenty of time on their hands, whether they're, on their lunch break or whatever. It's such a big market. I think it is something that's waiting to be tapped into. And who's to say that they won't bring out an attachment for the phones and work in partnership with Apple and Android and all these companies to bring out some sort of adapter for a controller? Or do you know what I mean? There's no reason why that you couldn't get a little adapter that plugs into your charging port, which actually has got controls on it. So I think they'll probably be looking at it going, we've got to screen it. All we've got to do is get people to buy this outrageously overpriced controller, and they've got a gaming console right in front of them. Everyone has basically got a portable gaming console with them at all times where people can play games. So we'll see. Yeah,
I mean, it's going to give them a greater. It's going to raise their awareness, I think, with people that probably don't play games in general. They do play games. They're playing their smartphone games, but they don't see themselves as gamers because they're not sitting down playing it on the telly like we do. So you'd have commuter Colin who's sitting there. He sees that Mario Mobile pops up and he thinks, I'll give that a try. Plays it, loves it. He loves Mario Mobile. He loves tapping with Mario. He loves little Mario's noises and that. And he thinks he might go home and then think, I fancy buying that new Nintendo NX console that's coming out. Get a sort of a more fleshed out experience. And I totally see the business sense for this. There's massive money to be made here. And I think when they announced it, their shares shot up within 24 hours. They went,
skyrocketed,
yeah, because the investors, people were like, right, get on board that this could be a real, money.
I know what they're doing, don't they? Yeah.
I guess the only negative thing is that people worry that it's going to take away their focus from developing their software and hardware line.
They'll just employ more people.
You'd think they'll just work closely with this. You'd think so, wouldn't you? You'd think they'll just get these DNA people on board. They seem to be, they've produced mobile tech before and whatnot, and just expand their team. You'd hope they wouldn't be pulling off the brains behind Super Mario Galaxy, Star Fox and Zelda series off to do spin-offs on the mobile game. It's going to be hopefully a separate team, but as I said before, we don't really know what to expect with Nintendo, so I wouldn't be surprised if the NX is some sort of crossbreed tablet thing that you can play at home and then you can play it on your tablet or some nonsense like that.
You never know what these sort of Japanese are going to come up with. You see all the crazy stuff they've got going on out there. They're always capable of bringing out something that will work in the Japanese market. They love all that crazy stuff. But in the European market, we look at it and go, pfft.
What's that? The thing is, though, I will quite happily have that attitude. Go, not interested. But to be fair, until you've actually tried it and played it, it's tricky to, write it off. Like the Oculus Rift, when we went the other week, Logan, I was not that fussed about it. I thought, I don't think this is going to work. But when I put that on and was in that Omega game, I was thinking, Christ, this is awesome.
Yeah, it was.
It's not. Who's to say that this way of gaming it won't work? That you can't have a tablet and a home console that's linked together and you can seamlessly transfer between the two. They've sort of got it with the gamepad. You can wander off and play it on your screen. So what's to say that you won't be able to do it on the move? All speculation, but I don't think it's the collapse of the gaming industry that like a lot of people think. I think it's a bit of a overreaction in my opinion.
Oh, it's a load of bollocks.
Yeah, I think that's a good note to end that particular piece on. Now, we've had an announcement that God of War 3 is going to be getting a remaster for PlayStation 4. It will be dropping July 14th. But this is yet... I mean, we touched on it very briefly earlier about the current gen games only. But this is another remaster that we're getting with this generation, and specifically with Sony and the PS4 as well. I'm not that interested in God of War 3. I don't know why I'd want to play the third in the series rather than the first two. Surely you'd want the series. You can work your way through the story or whatever. But I don't know enough about the series to know if that's going to be an effect or not. But there's an awful lot of remastering going on these days. Mr. Hall, does it concern you that these remasters seem to be getting? Are they taking away time from other games, potentially newer games that you could be getting your hands on?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to say, isn't it? You don't really know too much about what's kind of going on behind the scenes. It might well be the case that it ties in nicely with why stuff's coming out on old gen as well as current gen, in that developers just don't know what to do with the new piece of hardware that they've got. Like Logan said, they might just not be aware of have been in production, but it's still, we've got to wait another year until we get the stuff. So they're bringing out remasters just to kind of keep a game on the market that will keep people entertained. I mean, that's not... God of War 3 got excellent reviews. It was really highly acclaimed, and I can understand why they'd think, right, well, we'll give that one another bash on the market. You look at the success of like the Halo Master Chief Collection, the GTA 5 game coming back out again. There's games that are successful doing it, so I suppose it's another developer that's seen that it's the market's right for it, so they've thought, well, we'll have a slice of that pie. But no, it's difficult to say, really. I mean, I've made my feelings known of it in the past, that I'm not a huge fan, but what can you do to stop it? Not much, really. No,
I mean, I think what they do with God of War 3, it's a really cost-effective way to stir up interest in perhaps a God of War 4, because you send God of War 3 out there, people that perhaps haven't played it then play it and then think, you know what, I'd like a bit more of this, and then you announce God of War 4 towards the end of the year, and people are all in the gear and the mode to play a new God of War game. I can see that's
marketing again
while they're doing it. But here is a list that I've accumulated. It's not every single remaster or re-release that we've got, but it's a fair chunk of them we've had for our these current gen consoles. We've had these are ones that have been announced or are already out. So you've got Devil May Cry, Borderlands: The Handsome Collection, which only includes Borderlands 2 and the pre-sequel. Where's number 1? I don't understand why that's been excluded. That really bothered me because I missed Borderlands, the whole series, and I wouldn't have minded getting the whole collection just for my own sake. I mean, I know you played Borderlands quite a bit, didn't you, Hall?
Great game. Yeah, really good.
Don't understand why they've...
Stupid why they wouldn't include Borderlands 1 with it. That is odd, because especially as the storyline does carry on.
Right.
Like you would want to have played Borderlands 1 to go to Borderlands 2.
To get some background and context, sure.
Just to give you a rough idea of
what's going on, So that's Borderlands, the Handsome Collection. That's coming out. It might even be out by the time this podcast drops. Dark Souls 2, Devil May Cry 4 Special Edition, Grim Fandango Remastered, Saints Row 4 Re-Elect, GTA 5, Halo the Master Chief Collection, The Binding of Isaac Rebirth, Sleeping Dogs Definitive Edition, Metro Redux, The Last of Us Remastered, Tomb Raider Definitive Edition, Resident Evil Remaster Remake, Injustice God Among Us, and there's rumours that there's going to be a Batman Arkham Asylum and Arkham City coming later on this year. There's rumours that Alan Wake's going to get remastered. There's rumours that the Uncharted trilogy is going to get remastered. There's rumours that the Mass Effect series is going to get remastered and released. Mr. Logan, is this worrying for you? That is an awful lot of games I've just reeled off, and I'm pretty sure that's not all of them.
Yeah, and I was just thinking there's a load of toot in there as well.
Yeah, there is a bit of toot, isn't there? I mean, you don't Sleeping Dogs. I loved it, but you don't be needing that to come out again. That was not, something like GTA, fine. Something like GTA where there's a continuous multiplayer aspect to it and they're adding to it. Like, that makes sense to me because you want to get the market of people that are using the current consoles. Fine. The Last of Us Remastered, one of the best games in the last 10 years. People say critically acclaimed, but then you look at stuff like Sleeping Dogs and Saints Row, and you think, what?
Yeah,
they surely don't deserve that.
I mean, you mentioned Alan Wake as well. I'm literally watching Alan Wake right now, and I can tell you, I don't know what they'd be doing with that. I don't know what is to be gained out of resin the graphics a bit more. No. There just doesn't seem to be a need for it. I actually like the idea of. My brain's died.
I can take over with a comment if that's needed. Until your brain refunctions.
So, I like the idea of a remaster. That's the word I was looking for. I like the idea of that, but not on newer games. So, like, for example, I'd like the idea of an earlier 360 release or something to be remastered, but most of these games come out relatively late on. I mean, we mentioned Borderlands, that was quite an early one, but why not then get like Fallout 3 remastered, definitive? Do you know what I mean? Some really successful titles.
Get them to do Fallout 4, that's what I want.
All that, yeah.
See, now this is the thing, like, you're absolutely right, Logan. I think to myself, I could really do with that game being remastered. Like, I think of Gears of War 1 or like you say, Fallout 3, the Mass Effect series. It's like I'm quite happy to have these games, but in reality, what I want is not those to be remastered. I want the next one in the series.
Well,
or you want your console to be backwards compatible, and then you ain't got a fucking remaster.
Well, I don't mind them putting a bit of effort into it and raising the graphics and making it that little bit better, but I disagree. I think when you say you want a sequel, I think what you actually do is what you want is the experience of the original again. I think that's what you're looking for. So when you say I want to Fallout 4, you're sitting there thinking, I had so much fun on Fallout 3. It was such a good game. I want that again.
I do not want to. I love it, but I don't want to play for another 72 hours of it.
No.
I want a new story. It needs to be fresh because
that's it. I want to be immersed in the next stage. I want to know what's happened to the characters. I want to know what's gone on in the world. I want the next stage.
I know what you're thinking for. You're thinking of Gears 5.
Well, no, not specific. Well, yeah, partially, but I want it to be as good as the first few. Yeah, Judgment, poor.
Not another Gears 4, please.
Aggravated me. Yeah. But yeah, you see what I mean? Like, I don't want to play. Don't get me wrong. I love Gears 3, and I love Gears 1. I love Gears 2. I could go back and play through them though on the 360. Yeah, okay. If you upgraded them, the online piece would come alive again, and I'd be able to go back to playing them online, which would probably be the only reason for it. But that's the point that you were saying about stuff that's got an online active community. That stuff you can kind of understand, but I don't know. It's very, very difficult to.
I mean, let's be honest. There's no reason for any of us to go out and buy it if we don't want it. But if some people didn't actually get a chance to play it, or just think, oh yeah, I'll give that a go now, then maybe it's a good chance for them to do that. But I think Jody picked up Alan Wake for £3.50.
Yeah, bargain bin. Yeah. That's where we're getting Hardline from. That's what I want, that bargain bin.
Get it for £3.50 and play it on your old console, really, is the answer.
Yeah, you're not going to buy the remaster for 45 quid, are you?
Yeah, it seems a bit... And, you just think it can't be that hard for them just to raise it up, the graphics a little bit, and then go, re-release it on a new console.
Yeah. To be fair, at the price point, a lot of these release at about our price, about 30 quid. 35, because they're not going out at the 55.
10 times the price that you can play it for, though.
Sure, but for like me, my Xbox is nearly dead, so that is a cost. And like something like the Master Chief Collection is quite unique because it actually has the original Halo and 2. So I'm not
including the Master Chief Collection. They did an awesome job on that.
But I've sat here and sort of gone remaster. That's annoying. But then looking back, I've bought GTA 5. Did I really need it? Probably not. Only because I thought that I wanted to play heists, and I thought, well, no one's going to be playing it on the Xbox 360, so I'm going to need it. The Last of Us, definitely didn't need to get that. It was very short after I played it, but it was a good game, and I wanted it again in my collection. I never bought the game last time. I borrowed it. And something like Resident Evil, I've never played the original, and this is just a remaster of the remake that came out on the GameCube, which many people think is the best version of it. So that'll give me a chance to go through and play that. I'm going to get that, so I'm buying into this nonsense. And something like Metro Redux was something that I missed, both the Metro games. I wouldn't mind picking that up, and I know that's floating around at about £10 for this particular remaster. That's 2 games packed into one. And I think there's a way of doing it, and I think there's certainly some advantages to be gained if you're part of a series. If you pack all 3 or 2 of them into one pack and then put it at a more competitive price point, you're giving a lot more bang for your buck there. And if we haven't got time to play all the games that we missed on the last gen. There's stuff that we've probably missed. And it does give us an opportunity to play these games if you haven't played them. I think sometimes I look at this list and I go, well, I've played that. But I know there's plenty of people that haven't. So I can see why they do it. And as long as it's not draining resource from new titles, I don't really care, if I'm honest. I will go out and buy the remasters I want, and I'll enjoy them.
Just another point as well. I think it could be, putting a spin on it, a money spinner for them to then invest into a new game. So maybe it's a way of them raising revenue to then put more money into their new games. So maybe on a flip side, it's not actually that bad. Yeah.
No, I mean, there's certainly a market for it. I think it's just because we've been flooded with... You know what it is? I know exactly... Well, I don't know exactly what it is. It's my theory. It's going back to our point at the very beginning. There has not been enough current-gen exclusives for us to warrant, these consoles to a certain extent. And
so you're buying the old stuff again.
Yeah, and not only that, but then when you see all these remasters being done, you think, what the fuck are they doing? Are they literally just spending time rehashing old stuff and not making new stuff?
Yeah.
And you can see how annoyed we got earlier on with the fact that there's stuff going on even on the older consoles. I think that's what's contributed to people's dislike for these remasters, is that there's not enough new exclusive stuff for them to enjoy on their current gen consoles. So this just adds fuel to the fire, and they're like, right, they're wasting all their time doing these remasters, which, and to a point, I have to agree to a certain extent, because it's not good when you've invested 400 quid in a new console and then you've been playing games that you've played previously, or there's nothing new coming out. So hopefully, I reckon towards the tail end of this year, this will all be forgotten about. We'll still be getting our remasters, but it won't be... In 2016, for example, I don't see it being as big an issue as it has been for the last sort of 12 months from now backwards. I don't think it's going to be an issue, because we're going to have more games to justify our new console purchases. Anyway. Yeah. We're stuck with remasters now, so you can't beat them. Let's join them. I thought we could just finish up by just going through, if we could have one game that we've played previously remastered, not remade, so brushed up and maybe change the control scheme slightly. We're not talking about a big overhaul, just remastered. What old game would we have remastered? I'll start with you, Mr. Logan.
Can I have 2?
You can have as many as you want. I can only think of I could think of a few more, but
I think there's 2 that obviously jump straight to sort of the forefront of my mind. Now,
Football Manager 2015.
We've been through this. They're remakes every year. They're remasters technically every year, but
Excel.
Yep. Now, the first one won't come as a surprise. Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Call of Duty 4 Classic, the best game possibly to be ever released, in my opinion.
Jesus Christ.
It was a phenomenally fun game to play. And
my ears are burning after that comment. Cool.
I absolutely loved it. It was the best multiplayer experience I think I've ever had and possibly will ever have. And I think...
Had a decent campaign as well.
It had a good campaign.
The campaign was awesome on that one.
Every map on the multiplayer was awesome.
Overgrown.
Oh, it was just literally every map. I mean, I remember playing it, and you used to come up and go, "Oh, not this map." Looking back on it, every map,
I'd kill for any one of those maps.
Yeah,
when you look at the later Call of Duties, and they used to release the map packs with some of the old maps in, when you got one of the older maps, you'd be like, oh,
yeah,
shit, finally, we've got a good map at long last, finally.
They literally struck gold with that. It was perfect. Literally, looking back on it, I've got no complaints with how that game was produced at all. It was just they got it absolutely spot on. I think a game like that, which come out relatively early on in the 360 era, I think would be really good to have sort of remade and put on the new consoles.
And be live to play now currently.
Because it's been ruined now. You can't really go on it. So I would love to go back to just playing with my 3, 5, 7 kill streaks and my gold AK. I'd be quite happy with that. It was just everything I wanted.
Cool. So that's number one.
Second game, little bit surprising, but Battlefield 1943.
Yeah, it's not a bad shout.
I would love for them to remake that. Again, it was blissfully simple, really, compared to games nowadays. But it was just, again, possibly the best. I'd probably argue the best Battlefield. It was probably quite revolutionary, I'd say, as well. And
it's just incredible playing maps of that scale against that many people with jets. Well, not jets at the time, but it was planes. I think you could get tanks and all sorts of shit. Yeah.
So to have that
vehicles, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I think a big hole in my life at the minute is, I mean, I know no one else really liked it, but I quite like Call of Duty 5. I like my war games, and I like the sort of Second World War stuff, and I think I'd like to see a proper Second World War game done on new gen. That's what I'm looking for. That's what I've got my eyes out for. But those two games, I think, obviously big multiplayer aspect of them, but I'd love to see them remastered, and they're not really late on in the 360 gen either. So
no, I like that. That's good. I would say for my one, it would be a very old game now, but it'd be Cannon Fodder, which I had on the Amiga 500. You heard me speak about it on the Greatest Games of All Time Part 1. Thing with that is you don't need, basically, I don't even want it remastered. I just want it to be released that I can play it with a decent, I'd like the graphics to be maybe bumped up a little bit, but keep all the soundtrack and stuff, and just have that game to relive and play again. I'm sure there's a way I can go out there and do it now, but having a nice remaster of that, maybe freshened up a little bit, would be fantastic. Anything on the old, like the 360 and PS3 generation, I'm not too interested in personally, but going back, that's the only one I can think of that where the control scheme would still work today. A lot of first person shooters back in the day probably wouldn't work these days using the current mechanics, so that'd be difficult to do. But Cannon Fodder would be my particular one, or maybe Streets of Rage 2. Again, you wouldn't even need to upgrade that again. You'd just be able to just release it as is. But I used to have it on the 360.
Oh really?
On the Xbox Live Arcade, and
I really miss that arcade. It's so good.
It's annoying that I can't play that now. So just getting that re-releasing out there again. Mine's probably not even remastered. Just have them released so I can play them on current technology. Mr. Hall, we'll finish up with you.
Yeah, so there's kind of three that spring to mind. Well, I say three, really two and one series of games. But I'm in line with Logan on the modern. Personally, I think I'd rather see Modern Warfare 2. The Modern Warfare 1. I know that might be a little bit controversial, but I think I preferred Modern Warfare 2, and I preferred the slight more customization on that one than there was on the first. The second one is Super Probotector, Alien Rebels 2.
What the fuck?
Do you know the Contra series?
Oh, yeah.
It's Contra 2, basically.
Oh, yeah, it's a different name, wasn't it?
Super Probotector, it was called, and it was absolutely incredible. Such a good 2D game. Like, I know that Contra 1 was out on the Xbox Live Arcade for the 360. Once again, I suppose I'm in the same camp as you. That's not really a remaster. Like, I might like to see it touched up ever so slightly, but I wouldn't want them to change the gameplay on it at all or anything like that. I want it as I remember it. And the last one is like, I mentioned the name in the podcast earlier on. I want a fucking Star Fox game, and I'd love to see the Star Fox game that came out on the GameCube was absolutely brilliant, and that would be so good on the Wii U, or a Lilac Wars, or the original Star Fox. You remember the first ever Star Fox game, which was the first game to ever really use 3D graphics, where you had kind of the pixelated. It was the first one to use the new engine where you were in a device that was flying forward, so you were kind of behind the ship, and it was just absolutely awesome. I'd love to see stuff like that remastered potentially. I like I say, I want a Star Fox game to come out. I don't know why they haven't done it already. Maybe it was to do with Rareware again, but
yeah,
difficult to say.
No. Well, I think that's a good point to end it on and wrap it up. If you guys at home want to get in contact, you can do. You can tweet us, which is @DimpDigital. You can like and then post on our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/DimpDigital. Or you can email us using the email address, which is dimpdigitalmedia@gmail.com. Get involved and get in contact with us. And remember to check out the Dimp Digital YouTube channel. We have some fantastic content going up all the time. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on that. But that's it for now. Game over. It's goodbye from Logan.
Bye.
It's goodbye from Hall.
Bye.
And it's goodbye from me, Apps. Thanks for your time and ta-da. See if I can get it now.
You two have cheated a bit there because what you've gone for is games that you want to play now.
Yeah.
Not.
Well, there's only two. There's only one game. I want to see the other.
I'm not bothered about it because ultimately what I'm after is nostalgia as well. So that's all it's about, really.
Mate, Cannon Fodder would be a great
I don't even know what that was.
Oh, I think it's on Good Old Games. Oh, yeah, it is. I can get it on Good Old Games for £4. Might do that. No, DRM3.
Poor.
What was that fucking knob picture? In WhatsApp, huh?
It's disgusting, wasn't it?
Oh, no, it doesn't disgust me. I was just like, what is that? How is that even? I thought something had escalated. I read up and I was like, there's no reason for that to be in there.
There isn't. Basically, it meant that me looking down at a camera would be just a picture of me tossing myself off all day.
Yeah, exactly.
That's basically what's good. But it's the fact that you've either A, got a picture of a knob available to send, or B, that you've gone and searched for it. What did you Google, though?
Man wanking, POV. Easy.
POV, you even put POV.
Well, you have to get point of view.
I want point of view, don't I? I don't want some other guy getting fucking wanked off at a random direction. That wouldn't fit the joke.
I want to see first person wanking. I don't want to see it in third.